The porcelain jar holding my husband's ashes shattered against my dining room wall, fragments exploding like my heart as my son, Robert James, stood over me, his face twisted with venom. "If you miss him so much, why don't you join him?" he snarled, his voice cutting through the clatter of our family dinner in my Savannah home. The room, filled with the warmth of pecan pie and flickering candles, went deathly silent. My daughter-in-law, Karen Elise, leaned back in her chair, a smirk curling her lips as she swirled her wine. My granddaughter, Lily Ann, barely 16, stared at her plate, her fork trembling. The neighbors, Tom and Susan Hayes, invited to celebrate my 75th birthday, froze, their eyes darting between me and the scattered ashes. I stood there, Eleanor Grace, a retired librarian and baker, clutching the silver locket David gave me decades ago. It's engraved forever, burning against my skin. The jar wasn't just clay, it was David, my anchor for 50 years, reduced to dust and now desecrated in my own home. I'd spent decades nurturing this family, kneading dough for Robert's school fundraisers, shelving books for Lily's projects, hosting Thanksgivings that stitched us together. Yet, in that moment, I was nothing to them. Robert's words echoed, a betrayal sharper than the shards at my feet. I wanted to scream, to demand why, but my voice caught. Instead, I knelt, gathering the ashes with trembling hands. Each grain a memory of David's laugh, his steady hand on mine. The locket felt heavier, a quiet reminder of love now tainted by this act. The room watched, but no one moved. Karen's smirk widened as she said, loud enough for all to hear, "Maybe it's time you let go, Eleanor. David's gone." Her tone dripped with condescension, as if I were a child clinging to a broken toy. Tom cleared his throat, uncomfortable, while Susan's hand twitched, like she wanted to help but didn't know how. Lily's eyes met mine, wide with shock, but she said nothing. I felt their gazes, a mix of pity and dismissal, as if I were already fading, a relic of a life they'd outgrown. I didn't cry, not yet. I'd learned long ago, shelving books and balancing ledgers at my bakery, that answers come to those who search. As I swept the ashes into a small tin, a folded scrap of paper slipped from the debris. My breath hitched. It was David's handwriting, unmistakable after years of love letters tucked into my lunch bags. "Check the accounts, Eleanor." The words hit like a second blow. David had been gone 5 years, his heart giving out in our garden by the Savannah River. Why? This note, hidden in his ashes. My fingers traced the locket, its weight grounding me, as questions swirled. Had he known something I didn't? Was this his way of protecting me, even now? The dinner resumed, but the air was thick with unease. Robert sat, his jaw tight, avoiding my gaze. Karen chattered about her new car, a sleek thing I'd never seen, her voice gratingly bright. "We're just looking out for you, Eleanor," she said, her smile sharp as a blade. I nodded, my face a mask, but inside, I was unraveling. I'd given them everything: my savings for Robert's business ventures, my time for Karen's wedding, my heart for Lily's dreams. Yet here I was, humiliated in my own home. The locket, my only witness to a life I thought I'd built. I excused myself, claiming fatigue, and retreated to my kitchen. Alone, I opened my Chase banking app, David's note burning in my mind. The screen loaded, and my heart sank. My savings account, built from years of early mornings at the bakery, showed a balance of $1,237. It should have been $87,000. Transactions listed transfers to Robert, labeled family expenses. My hands shook, not from age but from rage. I remembered Robert's voice, months ago, smooth as honey. "Mom, let me handle the finances. You're not good with this stuff." I'd trusted him, grieving and lost, but now I saw the truth. He wasn't protecting me, he was plundering me. I closed the app, my mind racing. The locket felt warm, as if David were whispering, "You're stronger than this." I thought of our nights dancing to old jazz in this very kitchen, his belief in me, a quiet fire. But doubt crept in. What if I confront him and lose him forever? The question gnawed, love and betrayal, tangled like vines. I wasn't ready to fight, not yet, but the note was a spark. David had left me a clue, a lifeline. I just needed to follow it. Susan knocked softly, her face etched with concern. "Eleanor, are you okay?" she asked, stepping inside. I wanted to tell her everything, the note, the money, the betrayal, but I held back. Instead, I said, "I will be." Her eyes softened, and she squeezed my hand. "You don't deserve this," she whispered. Her words, simple and true, were a lifeline of their own. I wasn't alone, not entirely. Tom lingered in the doorway, his silence supportive, a witness to the fracture in my family. As they left, I sat at the table, the tin of ashes beside me. I opened the locket, revealing a tiny photo of David and me, laughing by the river. The memory stung, but it also steadied me. Robert and Karen thought I was weak, a grieving widow to be managed. They were wrong. I'd spent years finding answers, in books, solving problems with flour and sugar. This was just another puzzle, one David had trusted me to solve. I sent a quick email to Margaret Rose, my old book club friend, asking if she'd heard anything about Robert's finances. Her reply came fast. "Check Karen's Facebook. She's been posting about a new car." My pulse quickened. I logged in, scrolling through Karen's page. There it was, a photo of her leaning against a red convertible, captioned, "New ride, new life." The timestamp was 2 days ago, the same day a $20,000 transfer left my account. The pieces were falling into place, each one sharpening my resolve. I stood, the locket glinting in the dim light. Robert's words echoed, "Why don't you join him?" But they no longer broke me. They fueled me. I wasn't just Eleanor Grace, the widow, the mother, the grandmother. I was a woman who'd survived loss, built a life, and learned to fight. The note was my first clue, the locket, my anchor. I didn't know how deep this betrayal ran, but I'd find out. And when I did, they'd learn what happens when you underestimate a woman like me. My fingers tapped the screen of my old laptop, pulling up the Chase banking app in the dim glow of my living room. The house was quiet, the scent of last night's pecan pie gone, replaced by the faint must of old books I'd collected over decades. The app loaded, and my eyes locked on the savings account balance, $1,237. It should have been $87,000, scraped together from years of dawn shifts at my bakery, every dollar a sacrifice for my family. My heart thudded as I scrolled through transactions. To Robert James, my son, labeled family expenses. Each entry was a knife, twisting deeper. I'd trusted him, handed over control after David's death, believing his smooth assurances. Now, the screen glared back, exposing his theft. I leaned back in the creaky armchair, the weight of betrayal settling like dust. Last night's dinner flashed in my mind, Robert's sneer, Karen Elise's smirk, the shattered jar of David's ashes. I'd been their rock, baking for their fundraisers, funding their dreams, yet they'd reduced me to this. My hand brushed the edge of a faded recipe card on the table, one I'd written for David's favorite lemon bars. It wasn't the locket from last night, but it carried the same Ica reminder of a life I'd built, now crumbling. How much did I give them? The question burned, not with the raw pain of last night but with a quiet, simmering anger. I opened my email, hoping for distraction, and found a message from Margaret Rose, my book club friend. "Eleanor, you need to see this," it read, with a screenshot of Karen's Facebook post, her leaning against a red convertible, captioned, "New ride, new life." The timestamp matched a $20,000 transfer from my account. My breath caught, not from shock but from clarity. They weren't just taking my money, they were flaunting it. I recalled Karen's voice at a family barbecue, sharp and dismissive. "Eleanor doesn't need all that cash sitting around." I'd thought it a careless jab, but now I saw it as a plan. Margaret called, her voice urgent. "I heard Karen at the market," she said. She was bragging about securing their future. Sounded like she meant your money. I gripped the phone, my anger hardening into resolve. I wasn't the fragile widow they assumed. As a librarian, I'd tracked down obscure facts. As a baker, I'd solved problems with precision. This was no different. David's note, "Check the accounts," wasn't just a warning. It was a call to act. But doubt lingered. If I fight, will I lose Lily Ann too? My granddaughter's wide eyes from last night haunted me. Her silence, a plea I couldn't yet read. I needed more than screenshots. I drove to the Savannah post office, a squat brick building by the river, its air heavy with ink and paper. There, I accessed the public computer to check my bank's transaction history in detail. A new piece of evidence emerged. A recurring transfer to an account labeled RJ Consulting, Robert's initials. My stomach churned. He'd always said his consulting was small time. Yet, here was proof of a steady drain, $5,000 a month, siphoned for over a year. I printed the records, my hands steady now, each page a step toward justice. Back home, I spread the printouts on my kitchen table, the recipe card pushed aside. The numbers didn't lie, but they didn't tell the whole story. I remembered Robert's voice months ago, coaxing, "Mom, let me handle the finances. You're too stressed." I'd nodded, grieving David, trusting my son. Now, that trust was ash, like the jar he'd thrown. But I wasn't broken. I was Eleanor Grace, and I'd find the truth. I texted Susan Hayes, my neighbor, asking if she'd noticed anything odd about Robert's spending. Her reply was swift. "He's been flashing cash at the golf club, Eleanor. New clubs, fancy dinners. Tom saw him." Tom Hayes, always quiet, had a knack for noticing what others missed. Their support, small but real, fueled me. I wasn't alone, not entirely, but I kept the bank records to myself, not ready to share my plan or my pain. I opened my banking app again, this time to set up alerts for any new transactions. If Robert or Karen moved another cent, I'd know. My fingers hovered over the screen, hesitating. What if they're desperate? The thought flickered, a remnant of the mother who'd always fixed their problems. But then I saw the recipe card, its edges worn from years of love, and my resolve hardened. They didn't deserve my mercy, not yet. Margaret stopped by that evening, her eyes sharp with concern. "You're not letting this go, are you?" she asked, glancing at the printouts. I shook my head. "I can't. Not after what they did." She nodded, her silence a promise. I didn't tell her about RJ Consulting, not yet, but her presence reminded me of the community I'd built, the people who saw me as more than a grieving widow. I stood at my window, watching the Savannah dusk settle over the oaks. The recipe card sat on the table, a fleeting symbol of the life I'd poured into my family. Robert and Karen thought they'd outsmarted me, but they'd forgotten who I was. I'd spent years finding answers in dusty library stacks, turning flour into comfort. Now, I'd turn their betrayal into their undoing. The bank records were just the start. Something bigger was at play. David's note hinted at it, and I'd uncover it, no matter the cost. What else are they hiding? The question hung in the air, sharp and unanswered. As I planned my next move, the library's oak door creaked as I pushed it open, stepping into the cool, hushed air of the Savannah Public Library, where shelves loomed like silent sentinels. My fingers, steadier now, logged into a public computer, the hum of fluorescent lights above mingling with the faint tap of keys. I wasn't here for books today, needed answers. David's note, the drained savings, the sting of Robert's betrayal, they drove me to dig deeper, to find what else my family had hidden. I opened the online portal for the joint account I'd shared with David, untouched since his death. A sub-account appeared, labeled Eleanor's Reserve, holding $20,000. My breath caught. David had set this aside for me, a secret safety net. But then, a new transaction blinked on the screen, a pending transfer of the entire sum to Karen. Elisa's PayPal, initiated yesterday. My heart didn't break, it hardened. This wasn't just theft, it was a calculated erasure of David's final gift. I printed the transaction details, the paper warm in my hands, a tangible piece of their greed. The library's quiet felt like a cocoon, shielding my growing resolve. I wasn't the shattered woman from the dinner table, nor the angry one staring at bank records last night. I was focused, a librarian piecing together a puzzle, a baker measuring each step. The sub-account was proof David had seen this coming, and I wouldn't let his foresight be stolen. I glanced at a small, worn bookmark on the desk, left by some patron, its faded quote reading, "Truth is the best weapon." It wasn't the locket or the recipe card from before, just a fleeting symbol of my mission. I tucked it into my purse, a reminder to stay sharp. Clara Beth, the young librarian who'd taken my place, approached, her eyes kind but curious. "Working on something special?" she asked, nodding at the screen. I hesitated, then said, "Just tying up loose ends." Her smile held a flicker of understanding, and she offered, "My cousin Daniel's a financial advisor. He's good with tricky stuff." I nodded, sensing an ally. Clara's offer wasn't just kindness, it was a thread I could pull. Back at my car, parked under the library's moss-draped oaks, I called. Margaret rose. "I found something," I said, keeping it vague. "Can you meet me at Forsyth Park tomorrow?" She agreed, her voice laced with worry. I didn't tell her about the sub-account yet, but her loyalty was a lifeline. I recalled Karen's voice from a family picnic, sharp and smug, too sentimental to notice what's hers. The memory didn't sting like before, it fueled me. They thought sentiment made me weak, but it was my strength. Honed by years of remembering every patron's favorite book, every customer's order, I drove to a cafe near the park, its patio buzzing with morning chatter. To think, sipping coffee, I reviewed the printout. The PayPal transfer wasn't complete, it needed my approval, a detail Robert and Karen had overlooked. I cancelled it with a few clicks, my fingers swift, my mind clear, but questions gnawed. How did they access this account? David had been meticulous, a man who balanced our bakery's books with care. This sub-account was his shield for me, yet Karen's name on it meant they'd planned this for longer than I'd imagined. A text from Lillian popped up. "Grandma, can we talk?" My heart tugged, but I didn't reply, not yet. Her silence at the dinner haunted me, but so did her trembling hands. Was she complicit or just caught in the crossfire? I couldn't risk her tipping off Robert, not when I was this close to unraveling their scheme. I remembered her small voice years ago, asking for stories about David. I'd given her love, but now I needed distance to protect us both. Clara texted, sending Daniel Paul's contact info. I called him, my voice calm but firm. "I need help with some bank records," I said, arranging to meet at his office. His tone was professional, no nonsense, exactly what I needed. As I hung up, Susan Hayes called. "Eleanor, Tom saw Karen at the bank yesterday, arguing about a transfer." Sounded urgent. I thanked her, my mind racing. Karen's move on the sub-account wasn't a whim, it was desperation. They were scrambling, and I was the reason. I walked to the park's fountain, its water glinting in the morning sun. To clear my head, the bookmarks quote echoed, "Truth is the best weapon." I wasn't just fighting for money, I was fighting for David's legacy, for my dignity. But doubt crept in, sharp and cold. What if this breaks Lily forever? The thought of losing my granddaughter, the one piece of family I still cherished, clawed at me. Yet the cancelled transfer, the printout in my purse, pushed me forward. I wasn't the weeping widow anymore, I was a strategist. Calculating my next move, I sat on a bench, watching joggers pass, their rhythms steadying mine. Karen's PayPal transfer wasn't just theft, it was a declaration of war, one I'd answer with precision. I recalled Robert's dismissive tone on a call last year. "Mom, you don't need to worry about the details." He'd counted on my grief, my trust. Now, I'd use his arrogance against him. The sub-account was my leverage, but I needed more proof of how they'd accessed it. Proof of their deeper plans. I emailed Clara, asking if she could check the library's public records for RJ Consulting, Robert's shadowy company. Her reply was quick, "I'll look tomorrow." Her willingness, like Susan's tip, reminded me I had allies, people who saw me as more than a victim. The fountain spray caught the light, a fleeting image of clarity. I wasn't just saving myself, I was reclaiming my life. Not as I drove home, the sub-account's existence burned in my mind. David had hidden it for me, but Karen's attempt to steal it meant they knew more than I'd thought. What else did David hide? The question lingered, a thread pulling me toward the next piece of their betrayal. My phone buzzed on the polished mahogany table of Daniel Paul's office, a small space tucked above a Savannah bakery, its air thick with the scent of fresh bread. I silenced the call. Robert James, Aganand, focused on the financial advisor across from me. Daniel, with his crisp suit and sharp eyes, spread a stack of documents before me, each one a piece of my unraveling life. "These are your estate papers," he said, his voice low, pointing to a signature that wasn't mine. My heart didn't race. It steeled. The forged signature, scrawled in Robert's hurried hand, had given him control over my accounts, my home, my future. This wasn't just theft, it was a calculated theft of my autonomy. I traced the edge of a brass paperweight on his desk, its cold weight grounding me, a fleeting anchor in this storm. Not the locket, not a recipe card, not a bookmark, just a tool to keep my focus. I wasn't the broken woman from the dinner, the angry one at my laptop, or the focused one in the library. I was methodical now, a librarian cataloging betrayal, a baker measuring revenge. Daniel's discovery was a new weapon, proof Robert had forged my name, not just on bank transfers but on legal documents tying up my estate. I slid the papers into my bag, my hands steady, each page a step toward reclaiming what was mine. Daniel leaned forward, his voice cautious. "This is fraud, Eleanor, serious fraud." I nodded, recalling Robert's voice from a year ago, smooth and patronizing. "Mom, sign here. It's just paperwork to protect you." I'd been grieving, trusting, blind. Now, I saw the depth of his deception. The forgery wasn't a mistake, it was a plan. One Karen Elise likely knew about, her smirk at the dinner a silent endorsement. I asked Daniel to dig deeper into RJ Consulting, Robert's shadowy company. I need to know how far this goes, I said, my voice firm, not trembling. Leaving the office, I stepped into Savannah's midday heat. The chatter of tourists on the cobblestone street, a stark contrast to my inner resolve. My phone lit up with a text from Susan Hayes. Karen's been at the club, talking about a big deal with some investor. Tom overheard. I pictured Tom Hayes, quiet but observant, catching fragments of Karen's schemes. Susan's updates were becoming my eyes and ears, her loyalty a quiet strength. I replied, keep listening, don't tell anyone. Their support wasn't just kindness, it was ammunition. I drove to a quiet diner on the edge of town, its neon sign flickering, the air heavy with grease and coffee. Sitting in a corner booth, I reviewed the forged documents, each signature a betrayal. A second piece of evidence surfaced as I flipped through, a notarized form, dated 2 years ago, transferring my Bakri's deed to RJ Consulting. The notary's name was unfamiliar, but the implications were clear. Robert hadn't just taken my money, he'd taken my legacy. The diner's jukebox played a low country tune, its mournful notes, a fleeting echo of my determination. I wasn't grieving anymore, I was strategizing. I called Margaret Rose, my voice clipped. Can you check if RJ Consulting is registered locally? She paused, then said, I'll ask my friend at the county office. Be careful, Eleanor. Her caution reminded me of the stakes. I wasn't just fighting for money or property, I was fighting for my identity, for the woman who'd built a life from books and dough. But a question lingered, sharp and heavy. If I expose them, will I lose Lillian for good? My granddaughter's text from yesterday, unanswered, weighed on me. Her silence at the dinner, her trembling hands. Could I risk breaking her heart to save my own? At the diner, I opened my banking app, checking for new activity. Nothing yet, but the alerts I'd set were my guardrails. I recalled Karen's voice, at a family reunion, casual but cutting. Eleanor's too old to run a business anymore. The crowd had laughed, but I'd felt the jab. Now, I saw it as a clue they'd been planning to strip me bare for years. I emailed Daniel, asking him to cross-check the notary's name against public records. His reply came fast. On it, this could be big. His efficiency matched my growing precision. Each step a move in a chess game I was learning to play. Lillian texted again. Grandma, please, I need to see you. My thumb hovered over the screen, but I didn't respond. Her loyalty was uncertain. Her parents' influence too strong. I remembered her small hand in mine, years ago, as we walked by the river, her laughter a balm. Now, that memory was a risk, threatening to soften my resolve. I pushed it aside, focusing on the forged documents. They weren't just paper, they were proof of a betrayal deeper than I'd imagined. Susan called as I left the diner. Her voice hushed. Eleanor, Tom saw Robert at the bank, signing something with a lawyer. Looked serious. I thanked her, my mind racing. Robert was moving fast, likely covering his tracks. But I was faster. I drove home, the forged documents in my bag, the paperweight's weight still vivid in my mind. I wasn't just a victim, I was a force, piecing together their lies with the precision of a librarian, the patience of a baker. At home, I spread the documents on my kitchen counter, the diner's jukebox tune still echoing in my head. The forgery was my leverage, but it wasn't enough. I needed to know why Robert had gone this far. What drove him beyond greed? What are they so afraid of? The question burned, a spark in the dark, pushing me toward the next piece of their puzzle. Doorbell chimed, sharp and insistent, as I sat on my porch swing, the Savannah evening heavy with the scent of jasmine. Susan Hayes stood there, her face pale, clutching a folded piece of paper. You need to hear this, she said, her voice low, urgent. She unfolded the note, a scribbled account of Karen Elise's words at a PTA meeting she'd overheard. Done. We're taking care of loose ends. The phrase hit like a slap, not with the raw shock of the shattered jar, the sting of stolen savings, the focus of hidden accounts, or the cold clarity of forged signatures. This was a new, deliberate, public, final. My fingers tightened on the swing's chain. Its rusted links a fleeting emblem of my fraying family ties, grounding me in a resolve that wasn't just methodical but fierce. I invited Susan inside, the creak of the porch boards underfoot a stark contrast to the silence between us. She handed me the note, her handwriting jagged from haste. Karen said it in front of everyone, Susan whispered. Like you were already gone. The words burned, not with grief or anger, but with a blazing need to act. I wasn't the broken widow, the betrayed mother, the focused sleuth, or the strategic planner of before. I was a warrior now, my heart forged in the fire of their cruelty. Karen's boast wasn't just arrogance, it was a declaration. They thought me powerless, a ghost to be swept away. I spread the note on my coffee table, next to a glass of sweet tea, its condensation pooling like my gathering strength. Susan's account was my new evidence, a public confession of their intent to erase me. I recalled Karen's voice at a church potluck, sharp and dismissive. Eleanor's too frail to keep up with us. The crowd had nodded, but Susan hadn't. Now, her loyalty was my shield. Tom heard it too, she added. He was shocked. Tom Hayes, always in the background, had become my silent witness, his quiet observations amplifying my fight. I asked Susan to write a detailed statement, every word Karen said, every gesture. Don't tell anyone yet, I said, my voice steady, not pleading. She nodded, her eyes fierce with support. I wasn't alone, and that knowledge sharpened my edge. I texted Margaret Rose, asking her to confirm if Karen had mentioned loose ends elsewhere. Margaret's reply was quick. She's been vague on social media, but I'll dig. Her tenacity matched my own, a reminder of the network I'd built over decades, not just of family but of friends who saw my worth. I stepped into my study, a small room lined with old novels, the air thick with the scent of aged paper. There, I opened my laptop and searched Karen's LinkedIn profile. A new post caught my eye. Excited for a fresh start with RJ Consulting. The timestamp was yesterday, hours after the PTA meeting. My pulse quickened not from fear, but from opportunity. This was my second piece of evidence. Karen's public tie to Robert's company, a bold move that linked her to the fraud. I screenshotted it, my fingers swift, each click a step toward exposing them. Lillian's texts kept coming unanswered. Grandma, I'm sorry. Please talk to me. Her words tugged at me, but I couldn't soften that yet. I remembered her, laughter at my bakery, helping me frost cupcakes, her small hands sticky with icing. Now, her silence at the dinner, her parents' shadow over her, made her a risk. Can I trust her? The question wasn't just doubt, it was survival. I needed to protect my plan, even from her. I called Clara Beth, the librarian, asking if she'd found anything on RJ Consulting. It's registered to Robert, she confirmed. But there's a co-owner listed, an out-of-state name I don't recognize. Her discovery was a spark, hinting at a larger web. I thanked her, my mind racing. Karen's PTA boast and her LinkedIn post weren't isolated. They were pieces of a machine designed to dismantle me. I emailed Daniel Paul, the financial advisor, attaching Susan's note and the screenshot. Can you trace the co-owner? I asked. His reply was prompt. I'll check. This is getting deep. I walked to my garden, the evening air cool, the hum of crickets, a steady pulse. The swing's chain had left a faint mark on my palm, a reminder of my fight. Karen's words, taking care of loose ends, weren't just a taunt, they were a mistake. They'd underestimated me, assuming I'd crumble, but I'd spent years finding answers in library stacks, solving problems with sugar and flour. Now, I'd use their own words against them. Susan stayed, sipping tea, her presence a quiet anchor. You're stronger than they know, she said, her voice soft but sure. I nodded, not out of gratitude but conviction. I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for every woman dismissed, every sacrifice ignored. But doubt lingered, sharp and cold. What if this costs me Lily forever? Her texts, her trembling hands at the dinner, were a thread I couldn't cut, not yet. I stood, the garden's shadows lengthening. Karen's public boast was my leverage, her LinkedIn post my proof. But the Konar Clara mentioned some outside their circle hinted at a deeper game. Who else is pulling their strings? The question burned, a beacon in the dark, driving me toward the next move in my rebellion. My car idled outside Emily June's law office, a narrow brick building, on a quiet Savannah street, its windows reflecting the golden dusk. I clutched a manila folder, the weight of forged documents and Karen's PTA boast inside, and stepped into the cool cedar-scented lobby. Emily, a sharp-eyed lawyer with a reputation for cutting through lies, greeted me with a firm handshake. "Let's see what you've got," she said, spreading my evidence across her desk. Her eyes widened as she uncovered a new bombshell, a power of attorney, dated 3 years ago, granting Robert James full control over my estate. The signature, like the others, wasn't mine. It was a forgery, executed with chilling precision. My heart didn't waver. It surged with a cold, unyielding determination. This wasn't just theft or betrayal, it was a systematic dismantling of my life. I ran my finger along the edge of a small, tarnished key on Emily's desk, a forgotten office trinket, its dull shine, a fleeting symbol of unlocking truths. Not a locket, recipe card, bookmark, paperweight, or chain, just a momentary anchor for my resolve. I wasn't the shattered widow, the angry mother, the focused sleuth, the methodical planner, or the fierce warrior of before. I was relentless now, a librarian unearthing buried secrets, a baker crafting a reckoning. The power of attorney was my new weapon, proof Robert hadn't just stolen money but seized my entire legacy. With Karen Elise's smug approval, Emily leaned back, her voice steady. "This is airtight fraud, Eleanor. We can sue, but it'll be a fight." I nodded, recalling Robert's dismissive tone over the phone last month. "Mom, you're too old to handle this stuff." Trust me, I'd trusted him, grieving David, but now I saw his words as a cage. The forgery wasn't a single act, it was the cornerstone of their plan to erase me. I asked Emily to prepare a case but keep it quiet. "I want them to think I'm still in the dark," I said, my voice low, sharp. She agreed, her eyes glinting with respect. Outside, the street hummed with evening traffic, the air thick with the promise of rain. My phone buzzed, a voicemail from Robert. "Mom, stop poking around," he said, his tone icy, recounted later to Susan Hayes. "You're making a fool of yourself." His arrogance didn't sting, it fueled me. I saved the voicemail, a second piece of evidence, its menace, a clear threat to silence me. I wasn't intimidated, I was emboldened. Robert thought he could bully me into submission, but he'd misjudged the woman who'd memorized every Dewey Decimal Code, who'd balanced a bakery's books through lean years. I drove to a small park, near the Savannah River, its benches empty, the water's ripple catching the fading light. I sat, the folder in my lap, and called Susan. "He's getting nervous," I said, sharing the voicemail's tone without details. She replied, "Tom saw him at a bar, arguing with someone in a suit, looked tense." Tom Hayes, ever the quiet observer, was proving invaluable. I asked Susan to note every detail of Robert's behavior. "Don't tell anyone," I added, my voice a command, not a plea. Her loyalty, like Emily's expertise, was a thread in my growing net. Lillian's texts kept coming, unanswered. "Grandma, I didn't know. Please." Her words tugged, but I couldn't risk her loyalty yet. I recalled her small voice at a family picnic, asking about David's stories. Now, her parents' shadow loomed over her, and I had to protect my plan. Can I save her without losing her? The question wasn't doubted, was a challenge, sharpening my focus. I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for the truth, for David's memory, for the woman I'd always been. I texted Clara Beth, asking if she'd traced the co-owner of RJ Consulting. Her reply was quick. "It's a lawyer from Atlanta, Michael Reed. Shady reputation." The name was a spark, hinting at a larger scheme. I forwarded it to Emily, who responded, "I know Reed. He's trouble. I'll dig." Her confidence matched my own, a partnership forged in purpose. I wasn't alone, and that knowledge made me dangerous. Robert and Karen thought they'd outsmarted me, but their power of attorney was a misstep, a crack in their armor I'd exploit. I walked along the river, the key's faint outlines still vivid in my mind. Robert's voicemail replayed in my head, not as a threat but as a mistake. He was rattled, and I was the reason. I recalled Karen's laugh at a neighborhood barbecue, loud and cutting. Eleanor stuck in the past. The crowd had chuckled, but I hadn't. Now, I saw her confidence as a weakness. They'd built their empire on my trust, but I'd tear it down with their own lies. Back home, I locked the folder in a drawer, the park's river still shimmering in my memory. The power of attorney and Robert's voicemail were my leverage, but they weren't the end. Michael Reed's involvement meant this wasn't just a family betrayal, which was a conspiracy. What are they protecting? The question burned, a flame guiding me toward the next piece of their unraveling web. My laptop screen glowed in the quiet of a Savannah coffee shop, its wooden tables scratched from years of use, the air thick with the aroma of roasted beans. I opened an email from Emily June, my lawyer, and clicked a link to a scanned document, a corporate filing for RJ Consulting, Robert James's company. Buried in the fine print was a name, Senator Holt, listed as a silent partner. My pulse didn't spike, it steadied, sharp, with purpose. This wasn't just my son's fraud or Karen Elise's arrogance, it was a connection to a powerful politician. A web of corruption spun with my stolen money. I saved the file, my fingers deliberate, each click a step closer to dismantling their empire. I sipped my coffee, its bitterness a fleeting mirror of my resolve. Not a locket, recipe card, bookmark, paperweight, chain, or key, just a momentary anchor for my focus. I wasn't the shattered widow, the angry mother, the focused sleuth, the methodical planner, the fierce warrior, or the relentless strategist of before. I was unstoppable now, a librarian tracing a conspiracy, a baker crafting a trap. The senator's involvement was my new weapon, proof that Robert's schemes reached beyond our family, tainting my savings with political filth. Jessica Lynn, a local reporter with a nose for scandal, met me at the shop. Her sharp eyes scanned the filing as I slid it across the table. "This is big, Eleanor," she said, her voice low. "Holt's been dodging rumors of shady deals for years." I nodded, recalling Robert's smug tone at a family dinner, recounted to Susan Hayes, "We're playing in the big leagues now, Mom." I'd thought he was boasting about his business. Now, I saw he was entangled with power. I asked Jessica to investigate Holt's ties to RJ Consulting, but keep my name out of it for now. "I want them blindsided," I said, my voice calm, lethal. The coffee shop's chatter faded as I stepped outside, the morning sun casting long shadows on the cobblestone street. My phone buzzed a text from Susan. "Karen's hosting a fundraiser at their house tonight." Holt's name was on the invite. Tom Hayes had seen it, his quiet vigilance a gift. I replied, "Go, watch everything." Susan's loyalty, like Jessica's hunger for truth, was my edge. I wasn't alone, and that made my plan sharper, deadlier. I drove to a quiet marina, its docks lined with bobbing boats, the air salty and crisp there. I reviewed the corporate filing again, spotting a second piece of evidence, a bank statement, attached by Emily, showing transfers from RJ Consulting to a campaign account labeled Holt for Senate. My money, David's legacy, had funded a politician's ambition. The marina's calm didn't soothe me, it clarified my mission. I wasn't just fighting for my savings or my bakeries, I was fighting a machine that thought it could crush me. I called Margaret Rose, my voice clipped. "Can you check Holt's campaign records online?" She agreed, her tone fierce. "They won't get away with this, Eleanor." Her support was a fire, stoking my own. I recalled Karen's laugh at a neighborhood cookout, loud and careless. "Eleanor's money is just sitting there, doing nothing." Now, I saw her confidence as a flaw. They'd used my trust to climb, but I'd used their greed to bring them down. Lillian's texts piled up, unanswered. "Grandma, I'm scared. They're fighting." Her words tugged, but I couldn't waver. I remembered her small hand clutching mine at a 4th of July fireworks show, her awe at the sky. Now, her parents' shadow made her a risk, her loyalty untested. Can I protect her without breaking her? The question wasn't fear, it was strategy, pushing me to balance justice with love. I texted Clara Beth, asking if she'd found more on Michael Reed, the Atlanta lawyer tied to RJ Consulting. Her reply was swift. "Reed's been linked to Holt before. I'll send you a news clip." The clip, an old article, mentioned Reed funneling funds for Holt's campaign through shell companies. My breath caught not from shock, but from opportunity. I forwarded it to Jessica, who replied, "This is gold. I'll need a day." Her hunger matched my resolve, a partnership forged in truth. I walked along the marina, the boat's gentle sway a contrast to my racing mind. The coffee's bitterness lingered, a reminder of the fight ahead. Robert and Karen thought they'd buried me, but Holt's name was their mistake. I recalled Robert's voice at a family reunion, boastful, "We're set for life. Mom, don't worry." I hadn't worried then. I acted now. Their political ties were my leverage, a crack in their foundation I'd widen. Back home, I locked the filing and statement in a safe, the marina's calm still vivid. Susan texted from the fundraiser. Karen's all smiles with Holt. Robert's tense. Their confidence was crumbling, and I was the reason. What else are they hiding from Holt? The question burned, a beacon in the dark, pulling me toward the next strike in my rebellion. My fingers flipped open a small notebook, its pages crisp under the dim light of a Savannah wine bar, the clink of glasses mingling with soft jazz. I jotted down a name, Senator William Holt, next to a photo Jessica Lynn had texted me, Karen Elise, her arm looped through Holt's at a fundraiser, her smile intimate, predatory. The image was my new evidence, a damning link between my stolen money and Karen's affair with the senator, funneled through RJ Consulting. My heart didn't falter. It surged with a quiet, lethal triumph. This wasn't just Robert James's fraud or Karen's arrogance. It was a betrayal that ran deeper, personal and political, built on my life's savings. I tucked the notebook into my purse, its leather cover a fleeting symbol of my calculated moves, not a locket, recipe card, bookmark, paperweight, chain, key, or coffee cup, just a tool to hold my plan. I wasn't the shattered widow, the angry mother, the focused sleuth, the methodical planner, the fierce warrior, the relentless strategist, or the unstoppable force of before. I was victorious now, a librarian exposing a conspiracy, a baker serving justice. The photo was my weapon, proof that Karen's ambition had crossed into infidelity, using my money to fuel Holt's campaign and her own desires. Jessica slid into the booth across from me, her eyes sharp with excitement. I cross-checked the fundraiser records, she said, sliding a printout across the table. Holt's campaign received $50,000 from RJ Consulting, dated after your savings were drained. My breath caught not from shock, but from the clarity of their downfall. I recalled Karen's voice at a charity gala, coy and dismissive. Eleanor's money is just a means to an end. I'd thought it a flippant remark. Now, it was a confession. I asked Jessica to draft an article but hold off publishing. I need them to feel safe until I strike, I said, my voice steady, commanding. The bar's warm glow faded as I stepped into the cool night. The distant hum of Savannah's nightlife, a stark contrast to my focus. Susan Hayes texted. Karen was with Holt again at a hotel bar. Tom saw them too close. Tom's quiet observations were a goldmine, his loyalty unspoken but firm. I replied, get photos if you can. Stay discreet. Susan's vigilance, like Jessica's reporting, was my arsenal. I wasn't alone, and that made my plan a blade, honed and ready. I drove to a secluded bench by a historic square, its live oaks draped in moonlight, the air heavy with the scent of magnolias. I reviewed the printout, spotting a second piece of evidence, an email from Michael Reed, the Atlanta lawyer, to Holt, copied to Karen, discussing discreet funding through RJ Consulting. My money, David's legacy, had bought Karen's affair and Holt's power. The square's stillness didn't calm me. It amplified my resolve. I wasn't just reclaiming my savings or my bakery, I was dismantling their world. I called Emily, June, my voice sharp. Can you subpoena Holt's campaign records? She replied, with this email, yes. It's enough for a judge. Her confidence matched my own, a partnership forged in justice. I remembered Robert's smug grin at a family brunch, recounted to Margaret Rose. Mom, you're better off letting us handle things. Now, I saw his control as a chain I'd break. Karen's affair wasn't just personal betrayal, it was a crack in their scheme, one I'd pry open. Lillian's texts kept coming, unanswered. Grandma, I know something's wrong. I want to help. Her words stung, but I couldn't trust her, not yet. I recalled her tears at a school play I'd attended, her pride in my applause. Now, her parents' shadow made her a risk, her offer a potential trap. Can I save her without exposing myself? The question wasn't hesitation. It was precision, balancing love with strategy. I texted Clara Beth, asking if she'd found more on Holt. Her reply was swift. He's been investigated for campaign fraud before. Nothing stuck. The pattern was clear. Holt was untouchable, until now. I forwarded the email to Jessica, who replied, this ties it all together. I'll have a draft by morning. Her hunger for truth was my fuel, a fire I'd stoke until it consumed them. I stood, the notebook's weight in my purse, a reminder of my plan. Karen's photo with Holt, the email from Reed, they were my leverage, proof of a betrayal that reached beyond my family. I recalled Robert's voice on a call, cold and commanding. Stay out of it, Mom. He thought he'd silenced me, but he'd only sharpened my aim. Their affair was their mistake, a thread I'd pulled to unravel their empire. Back home, I locked the evidence in my safe, the square's moonlight still vivid. Susan texted a blurry photo. Karen and Holt, heads close, in a hotel lobby. Their recklessness was my gain. What else are they risking? The question burned, a spark igniting the final stage of my rebellion. My pen scratched across a legal pad, signing a donation form in the soft light of a Savannah community center, its walls adorned with children's drawings and the hum of volunteers. In the background, the form transferred half my recovered savings, $43.5, to a local literacy program, a final act to honor David's memory and reclaim my legacy. As I handed the form to the director, my eyes caught Robert James's confession, recorded by Jessica Lynn during a confrontation at his office. I did it because I was afraid you'd outshine me, Mom. His voice, broken and raw, was my first piece of evidence, a revelation that his betrayal stemmed not from greed but from fear of my strength. My heart didn't waver. It soared with a quiet, unshakable peace. This wasn't just victory over Robert and Karen Elise, it was redemption, a testament to the woman I'd become. I tucked the pen into my pocket, its smooth barrel a fleeting symbol of my final stroke, not a locket, recipe card, bookmark, paperweight, chain, key, coffee cup, or notebook, just a tool to seal my justice. I wasn't the shattered widow, the angry mother, the focused sleuth, the methodical planner, the fierce warrior, the relentless strategist, the unstoppable force, or the victorious avenger of before. I was whole now, a librarian who'd catalogued truth, a baker who'd crafted redemption. Robert's confession was my weapon, proof that his actions were a desperate attempt to diminish me, a fear I'd turned against him. Jessica sat beside me, her laptop open, uploading a YouTube video titled Eleanor's Fight. It detailed my journey, David's note, the drained accounts, Karen's affair with Senator Holt, and Robert's fraudery gaining views. The video was my second piece of evidence, a public expose that had forced Robert to confess and Karen to flee, their empire crumbling under scrutiny. "You're a hero, Eleanor," Jessica said, her voice warm but firm. I shook my head. "I'm just a woman who refused to disappear." I recalled Robert's sneer at the dinner, recounted to Susan Hayes, "You're nothing without us, Mom." Now, his fear was my triumph, his confession my crown. The community center's chatter faded as I stepped outside. The evening air cool, tinged with the scent of blooming gardenias. Susan texted, "Holt's campaign is under investigation. Gone quiet." Tom Hayes had seen her leaving town, his quiet vigilance a final gift. I replied, "Thank you for everything." Susan's loyalty, like Jessica's reporting, Emily June's legal prowess, Clara Beth's research, and Margaret Rose's tenacity, had built my victory. I wasn't alone, and that made my justice unassailable. Lillian waited by my car, her eyes red but resolute. "Grandma, I didn't know how deep it went," she said, her voice trembling. I hugged her, my first answer to her texts in weeks. "You're enough," I said, meaning it. Her presence wasn't a risk anymore, it was a bridge, a chance to rebuild. I recalled her laughter at my bakery, her small hands shaping dough. Now, her tears were a promise, not a barrier. I wasn't just saving myself, I was saving her, too. I called Emily, my voice calm. "The lawsuit's settled. The accounts are mine again," she replied. "You've done more than win, Eleanor. You've inspired." Her words echoed the YouTube comments flooding in. "Thank you for fighting." The video's reach wasn't just exposure, it was a movement, proof that my rebellion resonated. I texted Clara, thanking her for uncovering Holt's past. Her reply was simple, "You're unstoppable." Margaret's final update came. "The town's talking about you, not them." Their support was my foundation, a network stronger than Robert's schemes. I walked to a nearby fountain, its water sparkling under streetlights. The pen in my pocket felt light, a reminder of my choice to give back. Robert's confession and the video were my leverage, but they weren't the end. Karen's flight, Holt's investigation, they were ripples of my rebellion. I recalled Karen's smug whisper at a school event, recounted to Margaret, "Eleanor's too weak to fight back." She was wrong. My strength wasn't in anger or vengeance, it was, in truth, wielded with precision. As I stood by the fountain, I looked back on my journey. I'd started broken, clutching David's ashes, betrayed by the son I'd raised. Each step the note, the drained accounts, the hidden sub-account, the forgeries, Karen's boasts, the power of attorney, Holt's corruption. Her affair had forged me anew. I wasn't just a widow or a mother. I was a force, unyielding and wise. The lesson wasn't about forgiveness or strength, it was colder, truer. Trust is a currency, and those who spend it to betray you will always fear your worth. For those facing family betrayal, my story says this: your value isn't in their loyalty but in your refusal to be erased. Dig for the truth, build your allies, and strike when they least expect. To anyone watching, feeling dismissed or discarded, you are enough. Your fight matters. Claim it, quietly, and let their fear be your victory. If my story moves you, subscribe to this channel for more voices rising from the ashes.